Hi everybody, this is Dr. Audrey Ray. Today is day 4 of my 2-week challenge to share some coaching insights with you. Did you watch yesterday's video? Did you like it? I would love to get some feedback. It was more touchy-feely than what I usually talk about, and I'd like you to let me know if that's helpful to you or if you prefer that we stick to business topics. Today is going to be a serious topic, actually. I would like to speak with you about confidence. And let me tell you why. It pretty much blows my mind to see the spectrum of where people are in terms of self-confidence. You see incredible higher ed administrators and leaders who are exceptional in so many ways. They bring so much to the table, and yet they're having a hard time really seeing what is so amazing about them, and they tend to give too much attention to what's not perfect. Others seem to be so impressed with themselves, they're a little cocky, and that arrogance can create quite a few issues too when it comes to professional relationships and influence and leadership. So in the context of working with certain clients on confidence, there is something that's become abundantly clear to me, is to see the correlation between whether they have an internal or an external frame of reference and their level of confidence, and how by changing their frame of reference, they can impact their self-confidence. So if you're not familiar with internal versus external frame of reference, let me tell you what this is. In fact, I bet you're not, because you're probably used to DISC profiles, Myers-Briggs, what else do you all do? Strengths quests. There are certain tests and assessments that everybody does, but you guys don't talk very much about meta programs. That's something I learned in NLP, in neuro-linguistic programming. It's one of my big passions. And it is taught primarily by Tony Robbins in the context of gaining influence, mastering influence, in fact. But today I'm not here to talk about influence. Maybe tomorrow, actually, question for you. Would you like me to talk about influence in future videos? Because that's a really important topic. But the reason that I'm bringing this meta program here today is because of how it impacts your confidence. When somebody has an internal frame of reference, what it means is that for somebody to know that he or she has done a good job or is making the right decision, that person knows inside. It's based on their own standards, their own criteria, their own beliefs, their own evaluation, and approval doesn't mean much to them. Validation doesn't really mean anything to them. Even if 2,000 people told them they did an amazing job, if they don't really feel it inside, it's not going to make a difference. A person with an internal frame of reference really needs to be meeting their own standards, and they're not easily influenced. Now, on the other hand, a person who has more of an external frame of reference, they may do their job to the best of their ability and still feel a little bit insecure. They need validation. They need approval. They really need to get that praise. They need to be told that they have done a great job, because unless it's validated from the outside, they're not going to really believe that they did a good job. So think about it for a minute, how that can influence decision making as well. When somebody has an internal frame of reference and they're trying to make a decision, they need to know their truth, they need to know their standards, and they're actually very easy to coach because we can easily come to a truth or a decision that is right for them. Versus somebody who has more of an external frame of reference, that person is going to ask everybody what they think. They're going to take so much input, so much feedback, so many ideas from other people that they're very much at risk of not quite finding their truth, because they will go with whatever is said by the most influential people, or maybe by the majority, and they're much more likely to have an enormous amount of self-doubt. So I find that really fascinating, because again, I was taught internal versus external frame of reference in the context of influence, because when you want to influence someone, you have to speak their language. So if you're very internal and they're very external and you talk about what makes sense to you, it's not going to make sense to them. But when we're looking at this very simple difference in the context of confidence, it explains a lot. So to clarify, nobody is 100% internal or external. Everybody needs to have a balance of the two, because imagine if somebody was only internal, they would be a narcissist, a dictator, they would not be able to even tolerate shared governance. They would not want to know what anybody thinks. They would believe that everybody's irrelevant. They couldn't listen. It would just be a nightmare, especially in higher ed. So you don't want somebody who is too far into internal, but too far into external. Now you have somebody on your hands that can't make a decision because they get influenced every time they have a conversation with someone else. So they're flip-flopping, they have anxiety, uh, you can't really predict what they're going to decide because it's going to depend on who they're talking to. I mean, that person is going to be an impossible person to really follow because they won't be able to lead. So what you really want is to start paying attention to how you make decisions. How do you assess your own work? And if you're finding yourself having too much of an external frame of reference where you need other people to tell you that, yes, you've done a good job, when you need to know what other people are reading because maybe you need to read those books. What are other people doing because maybe you need to do those things. If somebody tells you that training is great, you should go to it, and you're signing up for it just because someone else said it, but you actually have no clue if this is right for you. So sort of pay attention to how your mind works. How easily influenced are you? And I'm not saying that it's wrong to listen to other people. I just want you to start paying more attention to whose feedback can you really trust to give you additional information and feedback you can truly use versus listening to other people's fears, other people's limitations. And there are people who are just unsupportive and will always reflect back to you worries and problems no matter how well you're doing. So this is a very important thing to know about oneself is, are you giving away your power because you're relying too much on other people's suggestions, and can you find your own truth? See, the beauty of it is when you become more self-reliant in terms of forming your truth and making decisions and knowing when you've done a good job or when you're making the right decision, it's really freeing. You don't have to second guess yourself. You don't have to go and check what everybody else is thinking. And by trusting yourself more, you're bringing more calm, more serenity, more confidence, and a certain charisma to your job that you just can't have if you're somebody who's always checking what everybody else is thinking. So keep that in mind. What is your tendency, and is that something you would like to change a little bit? So food for thoughts. Maybe tomorrow I'll tell you more about how that relates to influence, or maybe I'll just talk about a different meta program or something different entirely. Put something in the comment. Let me know, what would you like to learn more of, if it's more about self-awareness or influence with other people, leadership, charisma. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you. Talk to you tomorrow.